It was the very last bill passed on the very last night of the session. And because of that, lawmakers aren't able to override Governor Bevan's veto. Here in London, the sign came with me and it said, "Why are you going to vote on election day?" If you donate $1, they are able to turn it into 6 meals. The Capitol a sea of red as teachers came for the 5th day in a row, calling a sick out in protest. Come January 2020, this won't get you onto an airplane. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson stood on this porch declaring a war on poverty. It's now been more than a half century since then, but not much has changed here in Martin County. Mark, the plaza is back open here, but you can see that it still says, "Rest in power, Heather Heyer." But what they decided not to do was to board up the windows that weren't damaged. See, things are looking pretty good here at the Roanoke-Blacksburg Regional Airport. If you look at this is all the flights. In a room at the Jenkins Library, every person has been touched by black lung.
My husband, I watched him die from it. I watched his nephew die from it.
I lost my daddy with black lung. I watched him smothered to death. I had an uncle before that had a lung transplant and still died with black lung. But the latest is my son.
Jimmy Moore, the president of the Black Lung Association of Southeastern Kentucky, shows the difference between lungs.
So you can see the difference between my son's black lung and my black lung.
The others in the room are still in the early stages of black lung, but Richard Yonce's case has progressed farther.
I get up in the mornings, the first thing I do is 2 huffs on Delera. Before I left to come over here, 30 minutes on a nebulizer.
And even then, he keeps emergency medicine on him.
Here is a rescue inhaler in case I get out here and have to do something, and due to some exertion and totally out of breath, right there's the nitroglycerin tablets.
The group is proud of the work they did in the mines.
A bundle of plates weighed 25, 30 pounds.
But they say now they feel forgotten.
That the company is the cause of us getting black lung. It's not our fault that we got the black lung.
There are two groups of people that are failing us coal miners. The first is the most obvious one. It's the coal operators that have put us in this condition, and the second group of people that are not accepting responsibilities are policymakers now.
Fiscal year 2017, the Black Lung Trust Fund gave benefits to almost 26,000 miners and their dependents. The trust is funded by a per-ton tax paid by coal companies. In the early 1980s, the fund fell into massive debt, so Congress increased the tax. Now, as more miners are diagnosed with black lung, even with the higher tax, the fund is in about $4.3 billion of debt. A draft of a House tax bill had an extension, but it was later taken out of the bill. Wes Addington is the deputy director of the Appalachian Citizens Law Center. He says there is no reason the tax rate shouldn't stay at the rate it's been at since 1981.
We're talking about just a few cents on the ton here, but it's a huge amount for the miners and their widows.
The benefits range from $660 to about $1,300.
It's the difference between being able to pay their power bill during the winter.
Now, the group is turning to Majority Leader Senator Mitch McConnell for help.
We need this black lung fund funded permanently.
In a statement, Senator McConnell's office said the Black Lung Disability Fund will continue to exist, and it's important to note that benefits will remain at current levels even if the tax rate is reduced at the end of the year.
But at some point in time, if the funds aren't coming into it, then there has to be something changed.
A guy up there that's a multimillionaire, that's had a soft, cushy life all of his life, don't want to give us anything we're entitled to. And that is just so wrong.
Jerry Hayden and his son check out their silos ahead of their October soybean harvest. They're expecting a good crop this year.
Well, now we go out and look at it, and the pods have come on, and there's new blooms coming out.
But despite that, Hayden thinks this will be a tough year for his farm.
Your goal is to have enough money at the end of the year to go again, and so I can see it's going to be tight this year because we've gone from 1034 down to 34 roughly. That's $2 a bushel for every bushel. You know, it's affected this farm alone probably over $100,000 this coming year.
In July, China issued a 25% tariff on soybeans that come into their country. Along with being a farmer, Hayden is on the board of directors for the American Soybean Association. He says the same day China threatened the tariff, soybean prices fell.
We didn't have a tariff. The basis could be a positive basis right now.
So why the soybean tariff? It's a response from China to a trade war that started in March when President Trump announced tariffs on aluminum and steel. But while that announcement may have started a trade war, supporters say it also saved jobs right here in Kentucky.
We saw plants, regrettably, like some nearby here, and 60% of this plant right out here were forced to shut 3 years ago. This country came within 6 months, Annie, of losing 100% of its ability to produce primary aluminum.
Now, just months since the tariffs started, Century Aluminum CEO Michael Bless says his company is hiring about 300 people and bringing the plant back to capacity.
We began to bring on the formerly shuttered capacity in June. The first pot line of the 3 pot lines that were closed will be fully up to production here in the next week or two, and that's what we're celebrating today. And then the other pot lines by the end of this year.
Both Governor Matt Bevin and U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross were on hand to celebrate.
This would not have happened without the hard work that all of you have done to raise awareness of the hardships that unfair foreign trade practices have caused for your industry.
But just 30 miles down the road, for people like Hayden, there's nothing to celebrate. In July, Trump announced a $12 billion package to help farmers in need. And the government says they're committed to helping farmers.
We think it's plenty of money to handle the immediate situation, but the president is not going to let farmers go down the drain.
However, Ross didn't elaborate on how the president plans to keep that from happening should the money run out.
I told you, he's not going to let farmers go down the drain.
And Hayden says he's not giving up on the person he voted for in 2016.
And we've got all the confidence in the president that he knows what he's doing. He's a businessman, and he's got our best interest at heart.
And he says that's the case for a lot of farmers. Poverty is a familiar reality in Kentucky.
Right now in Kentucky, about 18% of folks live under the poverty line.
Dustin Pugel with the left-leaning Kentucky Center for Economic Policy said in some areas the poverty rate is even higher than that.
The 5th congressional district, so Hal Rogers District in eastern Kentucky, is the 3rd poorest district in the country. It's got the 3rd highest rate of poverty.
The current poverty level is set at about $12,500 annually for a single person or $25,750 annually for a family of 4. This is the rate the government uses to determine if people qualify for various social services. Pugel says already the current rate is set lower than is realistic.
For a family of 4 in Kentucky to have a modest but secure living, you need about $60,000.
Jordan Harris from the right-leaning Pegasus Institute says the poverty level shouldn't even be calculated the way it currently is.
What that level really does reflect is based on a 60-year-old data set, a 60-year-old data point. I don't think that a single metric can accurately reflect all of the different government programs.
The poverty level rate generally raises each year due to inflation. Now, the Trump administration is proposing changing how it's calculated to a form called Chain Consumer Price Index. Chain CPI means that rather than adjusting for inflation at a dollar rate, the inflation rate would assume people are switching to lower cost substitutions. It's a change Harris supports.
What this is going to do is over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 years give us more accurate reflections in that.
Make it harder to pay medical bills. It would make it harder to keep groceries in the refrigerator. It would literally be harder to keep the lights on for some folks, especially folks who are right there near the edge of that poverty line.
Harris disagrees.
I think that as long as the economy continues to improve, that's not a major concern here in the state of Kentucky. Right now we have 15,000 more open jobs than people searching for work.
Like all parents, Felicia and Shane Burchett want to give their children every advantage possible. Hi! They bought a house close to family, but just months after moving in, they started noticing changes in their children.
Our little girl is constantly saying that she is itchy.
And they think this is to blame.
That's nasty. It tastes salty, like if you brush your teeth, anything, it's just nasty.
They spend hundreds every month buying bottled water, afraid of drinking tap water.
I hate brushing their teeth in that water.
But Water Board member John Hensley says the water is safe.
From 2013 to 2017, that we wasn't in compliance. But since 2017, we have been in compliance.
However, they do have a problem with leaks and broken pipes.
You know, it's like you push one down here and 3 pop up over here.
Researchers with the University of Kentucky say that 15% is the goal when it comes to water being lost as it travels from the plant to the pipe. In Martin County, they lose 70%. And just as the leaks let water out, they also let other things in.
2 weeks ago or something, it was red, like an orangish red for me, like sulfur water or something.
Many believe that the problems stem from a coal ash spill in 2000, but the Centers for Disease Control determined that didn't have long-term effects on Martin County's water. Their problems now stem from deferred maintenance, and that falls back to money.
They've never had a capital improvement system. You know, you start at one end of the county of your line, and you come and you start repairing.
Money has long been a problem in this county of 3,600 people. In 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson stood on this porch declaring a war on poverty. It's now been more than a half-century since then, but not much has changed here in Martin County. It is still one of the poorest majority white counties in the entire United States, and their health outcomes are also just as bad. U.S. News gave it a 10.5 out of 100, based on an assessment of 80 indicators of healthy living.
And now we find ourselves at a time with our cancer rates are approximately 24% higher than the rest of the country.
Dr. Lon Lafferty says he doesn't know if it's because of the water, but says he stopped drinking it about 2 decades ago. He says the government needs to do something about the problem.
These people have gone underneath these mountains miles deep, risking life and limb to dig coal to light the rest of this country. And asking for the basic service of clean water is not too much to ask.
Martin County is getting money to make repairs. They received a $1.2 million grant, and another is reportedly on the way. But there's another problem.
To replace 1,000 meters, the bid that came in was $1.6 million. But we only got a grant for 1.2.
Water Board member John Hensley says there is no way to know how many miles of pipes in the county need to be replaced. And because of that, he says there's no way to know how much it will cost.
There's no, the figures on this are astronomical to what it would replace the whole system.
The slow-moving repairs are frustrating for residents like Dr. Lon Lafferty.
And there's no question that our elected leaders have failed us. Over the past 3 to 4 decades, our county has received a tremendous windfall of tax dollars, co-severance dollars. And if you drive down through Inez, and I would ask that you do that today, if you'll drive down, you'll see some tremendously beautiful, nice, huge structures. We have 3 courthouses. We have 3 courthouses, and one, the new government building, is a top of the line. And so we've spent our money on things that don't necessarily help the citizens.
In Martin County, the only money the water district gets other than grants is from water bills. Just this week, the Public Service Commission approved a rate increase of up to about $11 a month. But in an area where many live below the poverty rate, that will impact residents.
Our money flow in this county is going down. And if you keep raising, if everything keeps raising, how are you going to pay it?
But with pipes breaking on a daily basis and already $1 million in debt, they say that's the only thing that will keep the water on.
We're pretty well stuck here. We've put a lot of money in this house, and we're not going to get it back because nobody's going to buy a house that's in here.
In Martin County, Annie Anderson, Spectrum News 1.